All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Fire Station Building Committee meeting of Thursday, May 16th at 6:30 here at the Lakeville Police Department. I'd like to just extend an appreciation thank you to our Parks Commission. They had originally had their meeting scheduled here on Thursday night, but they said that they would be happy to move it so that we could be here and be filmed by LakeCAM. So LakeCAM is recording. Anybody else in the room recording the meeting? All right, and then we can all stand for a pledge of allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. So 6:30 p.m. How's everybody been? It's been a few weeks since we've seen you. Everybody doing well?
I'm doing well.
Yeah, good.
Doing good.
All right. Glad to hear it. The weather's on our side right now, and it's kind of nice to get out of that cold, yucky weather. So we're here tonight. Taylor, thank you again for help leading the charge for us. I'm going to turn the mic over to you. You're going to lead us to the next part of the project. So.
Excellent. Could I see a copy of the agenda? I just don't
Yes.
have. I just want to go in order.
Absolutely.
That's fine. Oh, you have another one? I'm sorry. That's fine. Just want to make sure I'm not taking anything out of the front. Perfect. All right, so the first items we're gonna, Kyle and I will kind of tag team this, but we do have some site updates. You want to jump into that, Kyle, and then I can add on anything. Yeah.
So they've done some test pits out there. So the map here shows where the test pits are. I got a little summary here from them, so I haven't memorized it. So test pits 1 through 4 were taken. So those are up kind of closest to the police station. We're taken as the initial idea of a possible septic system, and all 4 test pits were favorable with groundwater and permeability. So they feel that is a very good location for a septic system without having to mound for it. So that's positive. Test pits 5 and 8, which 8's in front of the building as it's positioned on this drawing, and the other 3 are in the back. So the 3 needed a skate park. This was taken more for stormwater. There was a high water table near the skate park. And basically with that, they started getting concerned that that's not going to be a great place to store water. So they moved test pit 8 back out into the front of essentially what would be the front of the building, and got very similar results to test pits 1 through 4. So without getting into too much of the details on this, essentially on this drawing, the front of the building, closer to Bedford Street, has good drainage. Things seem to be manageable out there. And as you get closer to the skate park, there is relatively high groundwater. They're saying it was about 3 feet down, so it's not extremely high, but higher than they were hoping for from a stormwater standpoint. In general, they feel there's sufficient, the soils are sufficient for both septic and stormwater, and it's something that can be dealt with during the design process. So all in all, the test pits were favorable to what we needed information-wise at this point. And then we want to jump to the stream a little bit here now, or?
Yeah, that's fine.
So there's not a lot of additional news on their end. From what they saw when they were out there, they didn't see a lot of reason where they could defend it not being a perennial stream. They're basically saying at this stage, unless we can find other information, which I know Nate's been trying to do, they're kind of set that they need to continue calling it a perennial stream. Obviously, if other information's found, then they're willing to talk through that. That puts the 200-foot setback in play. The next stage, they really want to get on the private property so they can flag the wetlands, so we can actually define what that 200-foot setback is. That's kind of the next steps on their end, unless Nate has any luck in his final few attempts to identify something that says it's not a perennial stream.
Yeah, so in what you see here in the layout, this has the 200-foot setback included. So again, it's the project, you know, kind of as it sits now in design, is that's the direction we're heading. And then if you know, if we do find something favorable, I know Nate just gave me some information that just came in today, but if it can be decided that it is intermittent, you know, we could push the building closer to the road. But again, as it sits with the 200-foot setback, it's not a showstopper at all. It's, you know, really a little bit of more site work and some asphalt paving. So at this point, that's the direction the design team will head. And if we get some updates, you know, we can look at moving it closer to the road.
And I think we can give, once the wetlands are flagged and we get a survey out there and we kind of draw that 200-foot line hard on the paper.
You also know
we'll be able
exactly
to
what
know.
100-foot is too at that
Yeah,
point.
we'll be able to tell you exactly what the outcome of that is, because just looking at the plan, you can see the 200-foot line is on here. There's looks to be plenty of room out in front of it where we can adjust things and shift things around. But this was also put together quickly, so we wanted to make sure there was ample room to move around. But it looks like you could, Chief, you could take your trucks and drive in circles out in front of the building here on this plan. So I think we can tighten things up and find that home, but we really want to set that 200-foot line before we spend a lot of time.
If I can, that's the one here that says 200 Riverfront?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and I tend to agree with Nate. Like, looking at it myself, it looks nothing more than kind of a ditch on the side of the road that's meant to take, you know, water when it has heavy downpours. So I don't think it's perennial, but it's, you know, that's how the state right now classifies it. So like we talked about before, there kind of has to be some additional information for the state to be able to change that or be able to petition for that change. So that's where we stand.
This might be a premature question, but the bottleneck well, I call it a bottleneck, but the narrowing in the front ramp, what is the tree cover going to look like around the what would the plan be for the tree cover around the fire station? Because in my head, I just don't want to get in a situation where egress for the fire trucks is hampered by one of the windstorms, and you know we've dealt with it a lot in the past 2 or 3 years with trees coming down across our roads. I don't know if this is in your thinking yet, or if it's just premature for this question at this time.
So we haven't really thought that through 100% yet.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it shrinks down to limit the amount of pavement we're putting in that area.
Mm-hmm.
I believe a certain amount of tree clearing becomes the same process as paving. So I think it's a reasonable argument to say if we're going to pave a 30-foot wide strip through there, we're going to take another, 15, 20 feet on each side to clear out so that you don't have that area.
Yeah.
And kind of open that up to one submission and say, hey, there's a reason why we're taking these trees. We're not just plowing through the wetlands buffers and clearing it. We're doing it so that there's less of a threat of, there being a blockage in service. So
This is just a personal view of it. I mean, if we can minimize the number of trees we have to fall, that would be beneficial from a marketing perspective as far as to the town, and I would like to preserve as many trees as possible. But I also am concerned about the reliability of the egress from the fire station.
yeah, and I
Just
think
get it out there.
I think that's something, once we know if we've kind of set that we're gonna leave it at perennial because there's no real backup, and the next step is, wait a year or more as we can build backup, that when they survey, we can kind of identify those trees in more detail and which ones,
Exactly.
look like they pose a threat
Okay.
to the position. And we can, obviously we don't want to get too close to the park's entrance, but that can move as we need it up and down the site, as long as, we maintain access to it, easy access from you. And, we can dodge trees, we can try to keep trees that are healthier, look less likely to have damage. So we'll have to really look at that and say, we don't want to clear this out of the caution of safety, but, some of these trees may have to go down strategically so that we're limiting the risk to blocking that driveway.
Thank you.
I think I was gonna say something kind of to that effect too, Chief, is kind of the next phase of this plan will be an actual site plan, a surveyed site plan. So when we're looking at that with building around it, then, you're not looking at just an overlay on, a forest mat. You'll actually be looking at a plan where you can actually see the dimension of between, forest, grass, mulch, whatever it might be in between, and then your roadway. So we'll look at all that, and you'll have a chance to review that, obviously. So that's kind of the next part of the design.
Thank you.
I think those are the big steps that's kind of happened in the last couple of weeks. So.
Yeah, so as far as the test pits go, all in all, it's good news. They can handle everything on site.
DPW, take mine?
Yeah,
Do the test pits?
CPW, yeah, they assisted with the test pits, everything
Good,
went well.
excellent.
No issues with that. So, like Kyle said, the next part, so that we can get out there and pick up the flags and do the final surveys, if we can get on the private property and do that side of it, that would be helpful.
We'll work on that.
We can figure something out. I'm having a hard time biting my tongue on this, so I'm just gonna have to say it.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I really don't like the idea that we're calling that a perennial stream, and I understand the onus is on us to prove otherwise. I think we gotta fight that fight. I don't wanna, I would defer to Mike. I don't wanna see the fire station set so far back, so you're gaining momentum leaving there in a rush. I was on for 15 years. You're gonna be looking to get going, and you're gonna go down this long straightaway out onto a busy road. The closer you are to Bedford Street, we're enhancing public safety. And to Mike's point, if you're dealing, that you're in the riverfront area, okay? And we say we're gonna start cutting trees so they don't fall across your exit. You're doing work in the riverfront area.
Yeah.
So whether we're filing because we're clearing all the trees in the riverfront area or creating a safer access onto Bedford Street, I think it becomes a moot point, and we're dealing with Bedford Street is the catalyst of the riverfront area. So the closest proximity to what we're trying to protect is a state roadway. I think we gotta ramp it up and push that a little bit more. And whether it's reaching out to DEP or trying to get in front of conservation, now we're not gonna be able to take pictures of a dry stream right now, not in this weather. It's something that the onus is on us to prove it's intermittent. I'm hoping like heck with some of that information. Mosquito control was out there in 1990 with a contamination issue. They dredged it. So DEP was involved, MassDOT was involved in that. I have one of the environmental folks from MassDOT right now looking through all of their files. They volunteered a site visit. That's not gonna necessarily, their site visit was still gonna have to prove it's intermittent. I just don't wanna change the whole design up to something that we're moving it back closer to the skate park and all of these other things, when we could really just, it makes no sense to have a 200-foot riverfront area there, to me.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm just at this point, I don't think they need to progress the design any further, obviously, until we get approval to go into DD. So we have a little bit of time to know exactly where that building's gonna sit.
And the 200-foot setback isn't necessarily a hard line. You just have to fight your way to get permission to build in it. So it's doable even if it stays a perennial stream.
So we'd have to do an alternatives analysis and,
Yeah,
it's a
yeah,
cause
it's
and
just-
effect and how you're gonna protect it.
Yeah, it's just, there's more paperwork and, you have to go through that process. It's not impossible. I think on the current schedule, it's probably feasible. We can definitely, work with PAR to see, can we get some people to look at it, unofficially first? And, find out are they just gonna say no?
Right.
Like, can we,
That's what I was thinking.
can we engage some of them at the, authorities and say, if we come to this, are you just gonna turn around and tell us no and we wasted 2 months preparing this? Or is this a reasonable, request that, and what would you like to see for us to prove that we should be allowed to do this?
So Kyle, let me ask you, so looking at the soils and the consistency that you're finding out there, are we determining that the building's pretty much gonna be the building when you go through design development, right? Whether it's right there or if it's 50 feet closer to the road, does the building change itself? Or,
No, right
It's
now,
really the
I
site
don't
work.
see it changing much. I could see, based on basically, if you look at the setback, the way it kind of curves up and around, I could see maybe a shift a little bit from the kind of house part, from the garage part. Maybe they offset a little bit to try to push it forward a little bit, but we're not talking significant changes. So I think from that standpoint, the changes in the building will come from just tweaking as the design goes on, fitting everything in. I don't see how the site makes any significant change to the design of the building.
so we could safely say we could move forward with design development if we were pursuing, having a determination of intermittent stream. If we found ourselves even in, just guessing August or so, do you see that would be a big delay?
No, I think we could move forward on the two, because we can keep kind of progressing on the building, assuming it's either gonna be here or 50 feet forward, actually, the soils remarkably get better for the building as you get closer to Bedford Street, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but, I don't think there would be a big hindrance in the building portion of it. The question would really just be the development of the site and trying to, find out what we have to do on the site.
And is
Yeah,
there, is there
differs.
less of a contingency on this? So the contingency really that we'd be carrying, so we go through design development, we get a hard building number. That's where you would fluctuate in your contingency more than you would on the site when you have consistent soils, correct?
Yeah, so I don't see, from what they found, there isn't anything that screams, we've got a major structural issue on the site, or we have to do significant, reinforcement on the site. So it's really down to, what are we clearing, what are we paving, what are we compacting?
Yeah, I think
So-
we could encapsulate that in an estimate if we were to do another estimate at that for correct. There'd be more fluctuation in the overall cost in the building itself because the site isn't a major undertaking. Here it's pretty cut and dry, right? So I see that the one part that I kind of see is becoming a little difficult in timing is the permitting. Because we gotta make sure, we don't wanna go to them with a building that has a 200-foot setback and then, we changed and we're going back to site plan review. So that's the thing that we need to make sure we hit timing wise correctly is knowing exactly, okay, the building's going here and then we go through permitting. So we might have to delay the permitting a little bit.
The local permitting won't be an issue from a time frame perspective. The MassDOT curb cut, when you have your curb cut section,
Yeah.
our original plan was quite an extensive curb cut. They're not gonna tolerate that. They're not gonna let us go with this and then say, now we get a 150 foot long curb cut. So we'd wanna nail that down before we apply, to the state, but from a local perspective, it's something like this is clear cut. We're not gonna have a lengthy process on that.
I think the length would be tied up in the building into a setback. And are they gonna fight it, or is it gonna be a 3, 4, could be a 6-month process where typically it should be, a week or two. That's where, sometimes you get favorable, pre-reviews on some of these, from some of these departments. Sometimes they don't want to hear it. You know, we've run into plenty where they just submit something and we'll look at it once you have officially applied. But it's worth, I think it's worth starting that question and say, hey, what are we looking at if we were going to do this? And if they're willing to discuss it and look at it, then, you know, put us down. But
I think we have a really strong argument, and I'm not looking to circumvent any rules and regulations here or get any favors from whether it be MassDOT or our local boards and committees. The reason for the Wetland Protection Act in the riverfront area is to, protect water quality, right, and habitat. If we were dealing with that side piece in a 200 feet from the area that's on the Ted Williams camp, I would say, well, you know, let's meet the act, we'll stay away from it.
Mm-hmm.
But this is across the street, and that's the part that I'm finding very frustrating. We know it's not a wildlife corridor. We know that they use materials on the roadway, and, you know, you got asphalt there, you got petroleum products,
gas,
oils,
yeah.
everything coming
Yeah.
out of there, and it's going into that brook. So if you measure from across Bedford Street and come 200 feet onto this property and say that cutting trees and putting a public safety building in that area is somehow contributing to, poor water quality, I think it's just crazy, and it doesn't meet the spirit of the act. I wouldn't be suggesting that we fight this fight if I wasn't confident that what we're doing here doesn't have any impact to the water quality going out that ditch.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I didn't mean like, this is the design I meant parallel track.
Yeah,
Is,
that's
for now, it's like worst case scenario. And then if we can get better information or if we can figure it out to circumvent that, then
Yeah.
100%, because it's a cost savings if we can get it closer to the road. And
Right.
if anything too, developing that site is gonna, better the water quality in that area, because everything's gonna be kept on site and filtered and treated before it leaves the site. So,
Yeah.
it's a betterment. the way
And
I
if
see
the
it.
chief said that this was better from operational perspective, I'd be like, well, let's do it anyway.
Yeah.
You know, but I don't feel as though it is.
So
And,
what's going in my head is that restricted area, that bottleneck, we'll call it a bottleneck. You've reduced visibility of the fire apparatus responding out of the building. So from a cost perspective, I'm trying to invent ways in my head to not have a traffic signal out there because I know how much it's going to cost. And so I'm thinking of like reduction in like a flashing light or a reduction in the speed limit out front of here. All these options other than the expensive traffic light. This will all but necessitate a traffic light because the cars aren't going to see the fire trucks approaching the street. So the only thing they will see is a traffic light illuminated. So it's all these downstream costs that get added on to this configuration. So operationally, it's inferior for sure.
The nice part about it, and I think the reason this is developed, this is the belt and suspenders. We said it at the last meeting, and this was, oh, geez, we got a 200-foot riverfront area, but we can still make it happen on the site.
Yeah.
And I do appreciate the fact that, we're looking at ways to, mitigate something that we can't do. We were gonna I think we should pursue the, first choice, and then, this is more of a fallback.
Is access to the private property an issue? Is that what's kind of holding up some of this?
Well,
It's not holding up this, it's holding up the wetland flagging, just because it was easier to obviously do it on the town's property, before intercepting with,
Okay.
I
private
think
property.
some of that was just trying to push that aside, do what we can on
Yeah.
our property, stay within the town jurisdiction until we absolutely need to.
I was just checking to see if you need me to charm my way onto the property.
I'm sure Nate would say by all means.
I know, yeah. But it was said, it is important to find out where it is on the opposite side, because that 200 feet is, the issue with the 200 feet is based on what's on the other side of the road. So if all of a sudden they go out and flag it, it's really 50 feet further than what it shows on this map.
Right.
It's 50 feet further, you already can get to the building, so it is time we knock on doors.
Yeah, and I think if we're gonna go talk to DOT or conservation, we're gonna have to have a true survey. They're not gonna use the map to tell us, well, get a survey of it, find that limit, and then we can officially say, okay, this is the condition we're under. So I think that has to be done either way, but it has to be done to kind of take the next step of seeing if we can build into this
Yeah.
area.
They're gonna wanna
Either
see
way.
something from a wetland scientist that flagged it. Which is what PAR would do.
In my understanding, they're ready as soon as they can get permission from the property owner to go out there. And, we didn't talk specifically to Jim or Spencer on this, but I would assume we can get the surveyors out there shortly after, maintain the, shrink that time as much as possible. If the surveyor says it's a week and a half to get out there, then we'll flag it, a day or two before they need to get out there, just to limit the time all that's on the property and the number of people on the property.
So we'll work on that.
Mm-hmm.
And by we, I mean Mike.
Give me the address, I'll show up, I'll go over there right now.
He's the new guy in town. It's easier for him, right? You know too many people, Nate. Anything else on the site? Next was marketing updates. I believe it was last week, or maybe the week before, but Molly did go by and taped the chief.
Yeah, she got me on a good day.
Did a walkthrough. The video right now is at 15 minutes, so she's doing her best to edit it down, keep the good stuff.
Some spirited dialogue.
But from what I've seen, it's really good. So she's putting kind of the final touches on that, so we can get that over to town and get that up. But she did a revised, complete walkthrough with the chief, which was great. It was on a busy day too, so there was a lot going on.
Yeah, it was.
So I think that's going to be a really good thing, circulation wise.
She get to film the chaos of a call, so it was convenient.
Yeah, it worked out well. I'm working on kind of a slide right now in concert with Lorraine that shows exactly what, that first tranche of money got the town, what the second tranche of money got the town, what the final, third will. It's kind of like a visual slide we can just easily put up. It tells you the story of the process here. So we're finishing up that. And then Molly is still finishing up some of the website stuff too. So we should have a pretty good push in the next week or so with a bunch of material that we can start putting out.
Great.
We had a pretty good showing at Lakeville Day. Mostly positive feedback from the people that interacted with us. A lot of people saw the visuals that you provided me, the boards that you provided. So they were engaged. They were looking at them, and it was surprising how many people they were very poorly informed about the project. When's this going to happen? This can't happen soon enough. They didn't understand the process. They didn't understand. They didn't understand the timeline and all the steps. Like, it was very much about asking about what do we have to do to get this done, kind of questions versus do we really need this? Like, what are the steps? What are the steps? And I said, well, it's going to be two town meetings and then a ballot vote. And I said those are the three things that need to be successful and happen. And that was almost across the board. Everybody was was not very knowledgeable about what happens between now and us moving into that fire station, but it was all positive. So that's a good thing.
Haven't chatted about an open house, you're gonna schedule them?
So I would prefer to do a weekday night, so we get the right audience. If we have a lot of a younger audience, like the children showing up to play in the fire apparatus, it's going to be kind of
That's a good point, actually.
It's going to be a difficult thing for us to interact with and answer questions when. That's what we found at the last open house we did just prior to the first town meeting vote, because we did it on a weekend, and it'd be easier for us to leave the apparatus in the building so they get the full effect. Where a typical open house, we pull everything out so the kids can climb all over it. So I was thinking about the week prior to the town meeting, and I was thinking about, I don't see a committee meeting on Wednesday. That Wednesday, is it the 6th? Wednesday the 5th or the 6th. I was thinking about either one of those two dates. I was thinking around.
Because we have one scheduled on the 22nd. which is next
So
Wednesday.
typically it would be the 5th,
Right,
and we would probably want to meet before town meeting.
that's the first week. We usually do the second and fourth,
Oh, okay.
Yeah, what's the exact date of town meeting again?
10th.
10th.
June 10th, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
We were thinking about doing like, the guys wanted to do kind of like a dinner time thing, maybe, cook up some hot dogs and stuff like that for people and, show some hospitality and have a select few members of the department, maybe the committee on hand to answer questions and walk people through the building. Keep it simple, as simple as we could.
Oh.
Open to feedback though.
let me ask you, when one of the hospital property did it was kind of like an open house, but they held it at the library. And it was on a Saturday for, X amount of hours, and they were stations, where everybody had the
Oh, yeah.
same information, and so people just kind of flowed in and flowed out on their own. I'm just wondering if, if people don't come during the week for whatever reason, if it was a Saturday morning, just for a couple of hours where people could stop in just to get themselves
Yeah, maybe it's,
You do too.
yeah,
I'm
or
just
maybe
trying
it's
to-
the way we market it too versus the day of the week it is. Like maybe even if it's a Saturday, we market as an informational thing versus an open house. Tour, station tours, open house, we'll have, 100 plus kids show up and, it'll be difficult to communicate with anybody. So, maybe that's the difference. Maybe the way we market it, the event, You think Saturday would be better?
No, I'm saying that we could do two.
Oh, okay.
It's just that I know how, having attended the one at the library, it was wonderful, because I went in, I was able to look around, I saw the designs, I was able to ask a couple of questions, but each, it wasn't bottlenecked in one particular area, so there were, people over there, but they were getting the same information,
Yeah.
so.
This, this first vote for the additional money for DD, that doesn't, there's no override or anything needed for that, right? That's coming from the town, so
Yep.
there's
Be
no,
presented and then the people at town meeting will vote.
yeah, so, I mean, it should be the easier one, you know what I mean? It's,
Right.
hopefully it's very cut and dry, but.
Right, and that's the easier one. However, this is what you're buying.
Yeah,
That there's more to come, like it doesn't stop here. And I wanna
Absolutely.
make sure that, and I don't, you can stop me or, get me back on a different track, but, if they're gonna allocate $655,000, for this project, I would wanna be able to tell them that, we're gonna come back in the fall and we're gonna ask for this much money for an override. And I wanna have that information available for June town meeting, annual town meeting.
Yeah,
Cause I don't wanna derail the project, but I think that having that information available is more important than not having it.
yeah, I think it's
So-
something too, when that article comes up, it has to be laid out, that this
Yeah.
is exactly like that slide we're talking about,
Yeah.
it's just, this was the first phase, we're in the second, that's what this money is buying. And the third and final we'll come back to you with a final cost estimate, a final design, that,
Right,
well, not a final design development, but,
right,
I think that's good, but I think the more people you can get to see the conditions today, leading up to that says, look, this is why we're doing it.
right,
Like, this doesn't work.
Yep.
We've been dealing with this for X number of years, it doesn't work like this. Then it kind of puts in their mind that, it might be a big number, we may not like it, but, if they don't understand what they're dealing with on a daily basis, then the number seems
right.
really large.
Getting the video done and getting it out there in frequency, and also when a meeting starts right now, you get a notification on Facebook that it's starting, but you don't necessarily have to watch it right then and there. It's it's available for you to watch delayed. So if your video falls right in line with the rest of the town meeting, that's very good. You know what I mean? Like I said in the last meeting, the absolute selling point for the police station was the police chief's video, hands down. It was phenomenal. Like, most people have never been in the police station, especially the back stuff, you know, and most people haven't been in the fire station. So you might get 2% of the town to come to that meeting, but you'll get 50% of the town to watch the video, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's true. So it's easy for them to view, and it's at their convenience, and you can shove it at them a couple of times and maybe
Right.
they'll consume it.
So that's, so yeah, let's get the date so we can plan on that. And then all the delivery of all of the marketing and when we're gonna do it, how we're gonna do it, what the open house night is gonna look like. You know, maybe we do have 2 or 3 different stations, you know, maybe we get, a couple of different easels with the same, schematic design so that people see it here and over there. And, I'm putting my party hat on,
Yeah,
I just,
I'm thinking about a weekday versus a weekend. And I think, like, if it was me personally, I would be more apt to attend the weekend one.
Okay.
Just because, working all day and then you gotta go, it's like, do I really wanna go to this right now? I think we would pull in more, but maybe it's marketed as an open house / informational informational session for the new fire station.
Just get a bounce house, and
Yeah.
the kids won't even
So
care
whatever
about
you
it.
have.
Yeah.
It'd be like, fire truck, what's that?
If it's going
Yeah,
badly,
to the bounce house.
if it's going badly, I'll put the Sparky custom on.
Yeah,
So
Have somebody babysit the kids and,
Yep.
Maybe you benefit having kids there.
yeah, that's
Oh,
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I would
would
stick
agree.
more towards
Saturday.
a Saturday morning, something
Totally
like
agree.
that.
I think the Saturday, I just figured as close to town meeting as possible would be good. So I don't know if this is Saturday before town meeting would be okay for everybody for a date.
well, that's the 8th, so are you talking maybe the 1st? Because isn't that Labor
The
Day
8th
week,
may
I
be
mean
too
Memorial
close
Day
to town
weekend?
meeting.
27th is Memorial Day.
Yeah.
Okay, so,
What
The
about
1st.
What about June 8th?
well,
Too
I mean,
that's
close
2
to
days
town meeting.
before.
Too close.
Too close.
The 1st?
Mm-hmm.
Is that a Saturday?
Yeah.
It's a Saturday?
Yep.
June 1st? Yeah, definitely.
June 1st. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, we're good, June 1st?
Like 10 to 1? What do you think?
Yeah, because people with kids in sports, they can either go before, after, if you do 10 to 1, and they'll get there either after a game or before a game. So
All right, that's a Saturday. We'll work-
10 to 1.
Yeah.
My son's baseball game's at 11 that day, so we'll have to.
See, this is another, yeah.
Stuff to parent.
From a marketing
I'll be
perspective,
there though.
a marketing perspective, it's like I'm not getting anybody that says we don't need a new fire station. I'm getting people that have strong opinions about what the new fire station should be. And I don't want that to be the downfall of the fire station because we can't agree on a decent building. And I don't know how to communicate that across, like that it takes a certain perspective and there's a lot of elements to knowing what the fire station should be. And it's like, maybe that's our educational goal is this is our lousy station and this is why we need this particular type of a building, because to me, that's most of the pushback. The negativity isn't about the need for a fire station, it's what we're building, Do you guys sense that as well?
Yeah, it's really, boils down to codes and regulations. So when we're looking at this building, there's all minimum requirements for every square foot that you have in there. And so we're trying to meet a standard, so it's much bigger than what we have. And that's because what we have doesn't meet any standard. It's not that we're frowning upon what we have. Our residents have done a lot to try to make sure it is what it is. And now it's time to spend a little money and make sure we meet those codes, regulations, and standards moving forward. Looking at this plan, I've reviewed it, there's no fluff there. We're building for the future and when we're being cognizant of the size And it just got to that size because of codes and regulations and standards. And that's really the crux of it. So we don't have an option, right? Codes, regulations, and standards are your minimum.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to meet that minimum, or you can do a little bit better, but you can't do less. So that's how this got to be this size.
Yeah, I mean, not to mention too, size of the vehicles, the apparatus have just grown exponentially, since, your first station was built. You know, firefighting has completely changed. The whole decon process is, not new, but to the older stations just don't even have those rooms in them. There's parts of the station that are integral to the whole makeup of an operation of being a firefighter today that wasn't even part of the design.
And a lot of them around safety.
Yeah,
Long-term
it's all safety.
Immediate safety and long-term health of the firefighters.
And
that's what's driving a lot of this.
We're not building a fire station either. We're building a fire station, an EMS, a water rescue, brush fighting and car accidents and every other thing that we do in Lakeville compared to just being a firehouse. So, I think you just gotta keep reiterating that, and everybody echoes the same message. And,
Focus on the ambulance.
yeah,
'Cause there's a lot of components in here that a lot of people never take enough time to understand why they're there. I think the big thing is all these spaces are there and it's sized mainly for the health of and daily operation of the firefighters. So it's long-term health and then the short-term operation and making sure that they can operate, efficiently. And it takes space. You can't do it in crammed buildings. So I think the messaging really has to be about, it's getting bigger, yes, but not just because we want it bigger. It's getting bigger for the health and safety of the firefighters,
Yeah.
which comes back to the safety of the town, The better their operation in the station is, the sooner they get out to calls and the better their response will be.
I know we have a website on the way, in the making. What is the feeling of the group about having a dedicated Facebook page and what's the comfort level with maybe one or two members of the committee being the manager of that page, the content manager? So like as we ramp up, start hitting people with messages, it's a way for us to export the video. It's a way for us to share plans and communicate why we're doing what we're doing.
I think it's fine as long as whoever commits to doing it is responsive to messages. Because I think the last thing that you really want to do is have somebody looking at a Facebook page every day for a new message and not see one, or somebody's trying to communicate and not getting answers. So it's a big commitment, I think.
The only thing, where it's a government entity, you're gonna have to be careful of, you can't be out there promoting it like vote yes, vote no, you gotta be
Just facts.
Right.
just facts. But then when you're responding, you may get away from the facts and start promoting. So that may be a tough.
So if we have some parallel organizations within the group, we have nonprofit, the Lakeville Firefighters Association's a nonprofit.
Right, they could do it, absolutely.
Yeah.
I
You
think
can
leave
do
it with
it.
them,
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay.
Groups like that can absolutely do it.
definitely. I would have the association do that, not the town,
Okay.
because you may get into a situation of, you're telling us how to vote.
Right.
Even though you may not think it,
Perception.
people interpret it, and I
But
think the association doing it would be great.
I think it's just a good way to combat misinformation
Yeah.
and address things that are out there.
Yeah.
Be responsive to some of the stuff that's out there.
Yeah. It might be good to even just turn comments off on, just send it out informationally. This is just, here's this, because it's just,
Right.
social media is the Wild West now.
You can't do that though if it's the town doing it. You can't.
Yeah, I'm
shut
saying,
off
yeah,
comments.
if it's the association, just here's the plan, here's this, and not, I think you're more trying to get it out informationally more than trying to get into the weeds with people.
Boy,
I don't know.
if you could shut comments off on everything, that would be awesome.
I mean, an association can promote coming to, attending the town meeting and vote yes. And
Yep.
the association can do that where the town can.
I'm not saying that don't have dialogue with people, but it can be, it can just sometimes take you away from what you're all trying to achieve. When
Yeah, that's
there's
true.
people that are, that's their whole point, is to shut those things down. It becomes difficult.
Fire Association's a 501c3 charity, so there's certain limitations to what you can do. Just gotta read up on that, make sure we understand what the limits of that are for lobbying and those types of things.
I mean, you may want to control it based on just forwarding information, or there's updates on the site. You know, the site's been updated with new information, and just pushing it back
That's true.
to
We can do
a
that.
controlled site so that you can let them push it out.
Yeah, could just
And
be a way
support
to
it,
get back
but
to
just say,
the
hey,
town
go,
site.
yeah, go look here. There's more information that's been posted.
All right.
All right, so, so we're gonna go with the June 1st. I'll work with you, chief, on some of the logistics, making sure that we, have the tie-in to make sure that we have, visuals or whatever we need. We'll do up a blanket
Easels.
list. Easels and stuff like that, yeah. Website, I'll work with Christina to see if we can start to, move some of the stuff that we're creating up there as well. And I know you're still working on your website?
Yes.
What was it, the domain or
Yeah,
whatever?
oh, this, I think it's actually supposed to happen tomorrow, so.
Okay, fantastic. And then we'll just work to make sure that we're connected on that.
Yeah, and I think because of kind of what the chief and Kyle were just saying, I'm thinking, we can work with you, Kyle. I'm thinking of a slide, or, I'm thinking of a visual that shows, why the size, and explain everything that's in it, what you don't have now, kind of the standards it needs to meet, kind of just the facts about why is it the size that it is.
Yeah, and we can, there's all kinds of studies out there on cancer cases. There's backup on why all these things happen. We can try to find links. We don't want to push those, but if people really want to look at
Yeah,
why we're doing this, we can find some links and directions to push people
Yeah.
into.
for more information,
Yeah,
here
because
you go.
there will be those few people that don't believe whatever is said on there and want to find out where it's coming from. We can provide that kind of backup.
Just wanna make sure, and I'll look at the timelines to it, so I'll reach out, so you'll be like, I might be nudging you.
Yeah, oh, that's fine. I can update the, that last slide you and I were going back and forth on tomorrow morning. That can definitely probably go up, tomorrow.
Because I know it was really important, I tried to take myself out of, this committee and put myself into a residence and what would be important to me for information. And it's the overall, project cost, but broken down, and how much is it gonna cost me, for the debt exclusion. And I know Bob is gonna.
Yeah, that's
to
information
find
I
a
can't give you.
Right.
Yeah,
No, but
that's-
the calculator, I know we're gonna look to see if we can identify one that we can put up on the website to.
Yeah, that's a good
help
idea.
calculate the actual household costs. Yeah, so we got some movement going. Yes, Peter?
One question too, that we should have an answer to, or, I don't know, it may not have an answer for a while, but what are we gonna do with the old station? It's gonna come up,
Yep. It
what's
has,
the town gonna do it? It's already come up, I'm sure.
yep.
It'll be asked, because, well, what happened to the old police station? That'll get drummed up. So, to be ahead of it is always better, rather than just be caught like, well, we'll cross that bridge when we come to it. That's never a good answer. So,
It's a good point, Peter. This group's talked a little bit about, the operational expense of the new square footage as well. Again, we're not trying to make the project look like it's more than what it is, but if the question's asked, we shouldn't be saying we have no idea. So, what would be an average kilowatt use, for a building of this size? What might be the utility expense to it? Taunton water, what is the building gonna use for water? Just so we kind of know what it might be operationally, for annual reoccurring costs.
the utility bills at the existing building must be outrageous, so I assume we could only.
Yeah, I'm the Green Communities guy,
we could
it's
only
not
stay
that
the
bad.
same, if not get better.
No, it will, and
It's a
that's,
sieve.
that's a good point, Peter, because it's not just, this is all new, it's what did you save there? So there's gotta be that little bit of, back and forth where if the current facility is not being utilized as a fire station, you don't have that usage. So it could be reduced off of the usage that would be expected here.
Yeah, I'll let Kyle speak to that. I don't know if they'll have enough time to do that, if your engineering team could put together some idea of
I mean, I think,
utility costs.
I don't think we'll have an accurate estimate on what the new building was, but we might be able to get you a similar size station
Yeah.
that's new, you
Yeah,
know,
that's a good
in the
idea.
relative area, that we can start comparing to, that, you know, it's new station, there's running roughly this, but, you know, 98% efficient
I think that's all
mechanical
we,
units.
that's all we would need.
And,
Yeah.
you know, then you can post up, oh, currently we're spending this for a smaller station that's less efficient, you know.
I almost guarantee you all of our comparables will come back higher than what the actual number will end up being because we have a municipal power company.
Exactly.
Money wise,
Yeah.
yeah, so if we reach out to another community with a like-sized building, we would like, you know, the kilowatt hours, you know, so that we can look at, you know, wow, G&E is amazing, so.
Yeah, we'll
About
look
half
back
what
at some
they
of the
want.
ones we've done in recent years and, call up a few chiefs
Yeah.
to see if we
See if
can
we
get
something.
some information out, so, of something that's comparable size, obviously, it won't be a perfect fit,
Yeah.
but, it'll give a ballpark number of what, you know, modern efficient stations are tending to use. I mean, they tend to be energy hogs and water hogs, you know, they use a lot of utilities for just because of the function of what goes on in there, but, they're much more efficient now than they used to be, so.
Just a quick question, you're planning on coming to town meeting, correct? All right, so we'll have to go over what that looks like. I wanna make sure that, I notify the moderator, of who out of town would be here that would be speaking. So if I can get a list from you of who the attendees would be, so I can make sure that that gets on that.
Yeah, I would assume, we would be, you know, there to answer questions. I don't know if we wouldn't be the ones, you know, reading the warrant article,
No,
you know,
no,
things
no,
like
no,
that,
no, no. Yeah, so that brings me to, the warrant article for the design development. It's sponsored by the Fire Station Building Committee, so is there a volunteer that would be interested? I'm assuming we're all gonna be there because we're Lakeville residents and we're on the committee, but is there somebody that would be interested in reading that? I'm happy to do it, but if there's somebody else that would wanna read that,
I would like to see the chief read that, if he's willing to do it.
yeah.
Absolutely, if the group thinks that's the best way to do it.
Yeah.
yes.
All right, so,
Come in.
Thank you, Mike.
all right, fantastic. Good, that was on my list of check,
Check.
done. Excellent.
What time does town meeting start in town?
7.
Annual town meeting's at 7, but the special town meeting's at 6:30.
Okay,
We have one article at 6:30, so if you wanted to, we'll probably get through that pretty quickly and we'll be hanging around. But 7,
okay.
but I would need a list of, who's gonna be.
Yeah, it might
attending,
just
so-
be Rick and myself, but I'll confirm.
Okay, thank you. Okay, this update, you gotta go through this?
Estimate update, yeah. Do you wanna talk about the estimate process, Kyle, before I go over the budget, or?
Yeah, so, we had, third-party estimator take a look at the drawings, so this is, you know, a conceptual schematic design level estimate, so it's basically a square foot estimate. But obviously, once we have a plan in place, they have some ideas, use comparative cost numbers. There are some design contingencies in here, estimated contingencies still, which are always held in early estimates. They're for changes, unknowns that happen along the process. And overall, I think the estimate came out pretty favorable. We've looked through it. You know, estimates at these stages are hard to kind of be specific about. So, you know, the square footages are there, nothing seemed out of line, square foot value. I think all in all, with both, Pomeroy and Scotia looked through it, kind of went over it, kind of compared it with some recent numbers we're seeing, and everything seems to be there. It's not saying it doesn't change as things develop, but all in all, I think it was pretty favorable to the town and the project as a whole.
Yeah, I think, the draft project development budget that I had given before, I was a little higher. And so really that's why you use a professional estimator. They have their finger on the pulse. They're doing this day in, day out. So, what I did and what I passed out was I updated that first stab at that development budget, that I had passed out a couple weeks ago. And so I'll walk through that quickly. There really wasn't too many changes other than what I did was I updated the construction cost part. Before I only had one line up there and it was just the square footage number against the square footage that's being carried, in the building. So obviously that was updated to carry the cost, that the KCM group, had estimated. So, you'll see the building and site work number, and then the construction contingency of 5%, the estimating contingency, and then the subtotal of the $14,208,661, which that's exactly what you'll see in the estimate itself. So that is the estimate to actually construct the building. That is the construction portion only. For people at home or that might not understand the estimating contingency, the estimating contingency that is in that $14 million number covers the gap between schematic design and construction documents. So that gap gets smaller the further along the design gets. That estimating contingency really just becomes part of the overall construction estimate, meaning that it's just what they don't know right now. The drawings aren't far enough along to say, yes, this is the number that it's going to be constructed at. So they carry an estimating contingency, just covers that gap. If we were looking at a estimate set for construction documents, there'd be no estimating contingency. So that number just gets eaten up as you get further along. By the end of DD, it'll probably be about 5%. And then, by the end, it's gone. So don't look at it as something that will go away and the number will be reduced. The estimating contingency goes away, but the overall number stays the same, in theory.
So ideally that is picking up things like finishes and just unknowns that aren't in this plan. So they don't know what's going on the floor or on the wall. There could be wood paneling. None of that's kind of in the drawings right now.
Yeah.
That covers those things that are typically, they'll develop as we go along the process on what those materials and details are. So that just kind of covers those pieces that aren't shown at this point in the estimate.
Correct. So, what we then did in concert, with Secotio was we put a 10% owner's contingency on top of the construction estimate you have. And that's really for unforeseen conditions, that might pop up, change orders, it could be for any owner vendors adding things to the project. So 10% is very healthy. It's typical. It's industry standard at this point to carry a 10% owner's contingency. And like I said, it's for things that come up during construction. We wouldn't recommend going into any project without a contingency. That's what it's there for. And that gives you your overall construction hard cost number. And I would say, just like we did with the police station, anything that's not spent in that contingency goes back to the town. It's just returned at the end of the project. You didn't have to spend X. So, it's not there to be used up. It's really there. So hopefully, none of it's used, but some will. Every project has change orders. So
Just for purposes, we're here and we're seeing this, and this is a public meeting. I remember the last, meeting before, somebody had said, well, what are the numbers? We're talking here, but they don't see them and they're watching, so they want to know.
yeah.
So, if you wouldn't mind just, reading, I can read the numbers, but as you're going through this, if you wouldn't mind projecting what those numbers are, because, unless I hold this up and, there's
Yeah,
really no way for people to see that, but they're
The town can post
asking,
this
so.
after too, so that
True.
makes it easier. But yeah, so the estimate that we got from KCM Group was $14,208,661 is the total construction project cost.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So you have 622 per square foot. Is that what you're seeing in projects that are being bid now?
Yes.
Yeah, that's right in the range.
Six,
where we-
$700.
Yeah, somewhere in that range.
Yeah,
is,
so that's correct. That's a good
Okay.
point, Bob. Is 622 a square foot, and that is construction cost only. That's before all your soft costs.
Yeah.
So then again, what we did was we've added an owner's contingency to that of 10%, and that 10% brings the total hard cost construction total to $15,629,527.
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to go through every single one of these
Nope.
owners' development costs, but what those owner development costs are, nothing in here, I didn't make any changes to these, other than the 9% of the construction estimate for the architecture and engineering, and the owner's project manager, the 4%, those are just based on the number above. So it was just a multiplier that was in there for that 9 and 4%. So those numbers will still be negotiated with the owner's project manager and the architect once we get through DD. We haven't negotiated those costs yet, but they're typically for a full project, DD through closeout. The architect is between 9 and 11%, I would say. You're at 9% here with Secotio, and then we're carrying 4% for the owner's project manager. Usually it's between 4 and 5% for an owner's project manager. So they're right within industry standards. And I would say for ourselves, we don't ever look at it really as a percentage. We'll actually go through and do the manpower and show you how that bears out. And it usually bears out right around 4 or 5% anyway. But we actually will go through the math. So again, your soft costs that are on top of the construction costs, you're looking at all your architectural and engineering work that's being done, your owner's project manager, the commissioning agent, we're carrying a third-party estimate in here, and that's being carried by the OPM. So if say at this point in time, I wouldn't recommend it, but probably at DD, when we get our DD estimate, I would recommend at that point doing a third-party estimate that's in concert with the architect's DD estimate. So then you have two estimates, you're reconciling them before you go into construction documents. Industry standard to do that at this point, especially with the way construction costs have been. And again, everything else are costs that we had discussed before. We have some costs in here for pre-qualification. Any building over $10 million needs to be pre-qualified. So we've been looking at using different firms. There's different pre-qualification firms now that help with that process because it's a pretty lengthy process. You have to pre-qualify any sub-bidder and GC that would bid on the project. So you can imagine if you have 11 different sub-trades, you might have 20 different packages for each one of those sub-trades. You're looking at 150 to 200 packages that need to be reviewed. So there's a lengthy process in that. So I carried, it's not a lot of money, but $6,000. I did add that to the budget to cover that process. Then moving down, we have the licensed site professional cost with LEC that's already in the budget, fire station alerting system, the firematic equipment, operational equipment, furniture, phones, computers, radios. Again, we can post this so people at home can see. It'd be very confusing if I started to go through this, but I would say any of the information under the owner's development costs are typical costs for a fire station at this phase to be carried. And what we do is as we get further through DD, we'll start getting actual estimates for these. So say it's for furniture, we start working with a furniture vendor, giving them the square footage that we need. They give us a price. Okay, we're carrying right now for furniture, 150,000. Well, after we have a furniture vendor look at it, it might come in at 130,000. We'll actually put in, okay, the quote is gonna be 130. We'll start buying some of these things out as we get further along and knowing what those are. Any savings goes into contingency, we, you know, write that line. So again, these are high level, typical costs at this time because we're just in early schematic. So really what that kind of boils down to is a total owner's development soft costs of a little over $3 million, $3,113,000 at this point. Then we put a 5% contingency on top of that. And the reason for that is the same reason we have an estimated contingency is every single one of those soft costs hasn't been bought out right now. We don't know if they're gonna go up, if they're gonna go down. So we're putting a small contingency on top of that, 5% of 155,000 just to be safe. That gives us a subtotal. And then escalation is the last thing that we put on this number to make sure we're safe. And so we're looking at a construction start of 2025. So we're looking at 7.5% escalation, which is safe right now. Escalation over the past 4 years has been anywhere from, if you look at that total 4 years, you know, upwards of 30-40%, 5 to 10% each year. So 7.5% right now is a safe number of escalation. So the total project cost that we're, you know, estimating at this time, $20,316,657. So I have it down to the cent, but the number will fluctuate a little bit as we start buying out some of these items, start getting more into the design, understanding the site more. This is a very high level cost estimate right now, but it's a safe cost estimate.
And so looking at this, I just want to say that we have, through annual town meeting, if the $655,000 for design development is approved and appropriated, that's $905,000 that would actually come off this bottom line, correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
The phase 1 and phase 2 money, if you're looking at what would need to be appropriated at the last town meeting to get this project through, to get it approved. Correct. You deduct phase 1 and phase 2 off of this.
Okay. So just doing, high level numbers, because my little old calculator here doesn't go past a certain, I can't get it all in there, but, looking at roughly about 19 million, a little over 19 million for possible debt exclusion. My math is, that's what we'd be looking at.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I get a couple of questions. I'm not gonna go into this line by line, but just going through it and looking at a couple of things. I know at an earlier meeting, we talked about the necessity or not necessity of having an elevator. I noticed there's no elevator cost in here. Has that been ruled out at this point?
Hasn't been ruled out, it's just the drawings that we had provided them was the set that did not show up. So you
Okay.
can safely, when we're talking an elevator over $15 million, it's not
Plug
really a
number
big deal, but
there or
it's
something?
100 to 150, max out at 200, depending on if, there was something special about it. But my guess is it would be between 100 and 150 to add one to the station.
Yeah, we're gonna go through the variance process of hoping to not have one. And the second floor is reserved for fire personnel only.
But if, I know the discussions come up, and if it comes up again and we need one, we can, getting one in there,
Or we could add the money to it if we're gonna go that way. So I didn't, right?
Yeah, I think, as part of the design development process, that'll be the process, whether we go for the variance or we decide to add one. But I think
I'd be a no vote on a variance, just making sure that everybody knows where I stand on that. With ADA requirements, I'm not interested in messing around with it, and it's not worth saving the money.
I'm kind of right there with Nate too, so.
I mean, I just don't wanna go through an exercise
Right.
that
Okay.
that
And
everybody's
not-
not,
we'd like to have it in
everybody's
there.
not on board with. I just.
I agree.
Oh, that makes it easy.
Yeah.
I thought there was discussion before about not having one, but
Well, we talked about it, and then there would be, a variance that would be required, and, but we didn't come up with a consensus, from the committee, but, you know, I've thought about it myself after that discussion, brief discussion.
Yeah, I would say
I'm
it's,
like,
it's,
yeah.
in communities, it's probably 50-50.
Yeah.
Not that they get it, 50-50 that they do it. You know,
Yeah.
we've done a few stations without an elevator, and we've done, you know, obviously some with. So some communities decide to go after it, and they haven't had any issue getting a variance, and others, you know, put it in.
I think from what we're seeing, a lot of substations, when communities have more than one, they'll
Yeah.
exclude their substations because they have a training headquarters or something like that, where, yeah, communities with one, a lot of times will end up having it. So it, you know, in the big picture, it's not in there, so yes, it is an add. I mean, another 150 on 15 million, just, it doesn't change it a lot, but it's something as we go through the design development, that, and we get that in there, that'll be added. But
Yeah.
And you have some healthy contingencies in there right now, because I
That's
know.
why they're there.
I saw the elevator piece, and I was thinking the water line and mitigation with natural heritage, these are all additional costs that we're gonna see in there. So the water line terminates here, we're gonna go through the same process that we did to get the water line to the police station, and what that number is, you know, is gonna be added to this.
Yeah, that's why there's that 10%, and also that, you know, 5% of construction and contingency that's there. That's where I was thinking the water line portion is. We just have to figure out what that scope is, but yeah, that's where I'm looking at the water line.
And at this stage, those contingencies are for those. We kind of anticipate things changing. You know, we could be halfway through and the chief could say, oh, we need 2 more beds. You know, something just happened, we hired 2 more people that, you know, the numbers changed, or, you know, so those are in there for those changes. They're significant changes, but not, you know, project changing scopes. They're in there for things like the elevator.
My main thing here is making sure we get the bones right, and if the chief and staff have to sit in lawn chairs for a year, then so be it. And I'm only partially joking there, I just don't wanna cut money out of the bones. Wanna make sure that we have the structure that we need, and then, you know, the accoutrements come in at a later date if need be.
Those zero gravities are very comfortable.
So we're gonna say, we don't need to vote, but we're just gonna say keep elevator in, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chief, can I ask you a question? I think we spoke of this when we first started this up, and Ari was here, about a generator. And I think a generator is
That's
not
on my
included
list,
in
that's on
this.
my list too, that's
Oh,
excluded.
it's a big dollar item,
Yeah.
and they talked about maybe purchasing it as a town asset, like separate from this, is that right? Or do you have a generator you're gonna move here, or?
We don't have a generator move here, no.
So the most likely reason it's excluded from this number is,
It says not included.
yeah, it's,
Oh, okay.
Oh, sorry.
Does it give an estimate or? No.
No, just
it's,
excluded.
they probably don't have any idea right now what that would be. So
Okay.
there's been no electrical design put in place.
Okay.
So they would just be randomly guessing at a size of a generator. So if they said it was $100,000 generator, well, it could be a $300,000 generator. You know,
Yes,
they're
yeah.
just, they would be just completely
ridiculously
blindly
expensive.
guessing. I mean,
It'll be in the project though. There will be a generator.
Okay. I
Yeah.
was just
Yeah, you
curious.
need
Yep.
it.
yeah, that's
I-
just,
I
they're
didn't
excluding
know if
it
there was
out of.
another plan of sourcing it and then it would be installed. Okay.
No, it's excluded out of just not having any idea what that would be at this point in time, and they fluctuate pretty widely in cost depending on the size of them.
Oh, yeah.
You know, storage tanks, you know, we can give them some basic guidelines, but I think it's just it's a very specific item that fluctuates in cost where it's designed specifically for the building, so,
And this
Yeah.
is a healthy conversation, because if any of these questions come up, if you do post this online or post any other information, that's why the contingency is what it is, right? We have all of these little pieces that we're gonna have to fit into the puzzle, and that's why we're carrying the contingency. So it's not like the contingency is all gonna get returned, as you guys mentioned. It's for the things that we haven't nailed down yet.
Yeah, that's like if you look at line 2, there's a construction contingency that the estimator carried, that 5%. So, you know, technically, so there's a 5% construction contingency, and then I put a 10% owner's contingency. Really, in that owner's 10% owner's contingency, it's, you know, for half construction, half, you know, if you want to put stuff back in the building. So I was looking at that line 2, that construction contingency that the estimator is carrying, that's water line, generator, elevator, those things that, haven't quite been figured out yet that need to be in the building.
Hopefully change orders will be minimal.
That's the plan. That's the
Unlike,
plan.
you know, oh, they forgot to put, they forgot to design a light in a bathroom or something. I've seen that millions of times.
We
You know,
only
and
had like 8 of them here.
It was very
They were all
minimal.
small.
Yeah.
I'll say if you forget one
Was it?
light, that's not
Yeah.
bad.
Yeah.
That's pretty good if one light's the only thing that you've missed, so.
Was there anything else?
Yeah.
We can expect a fire pump in that building, because this one has it, so we're not gonna meet our calc without one, you know? So that, I don't know what a fire pump goes for, but I think it's electric in this building, it's not
It's electric.
it is electric fire pump. So-
Boogie woogie woogie. Not that old.
You get a
Did you just
specialty,
go boogie woogie woogie? It's on camera.
I did that just for Mike.
We're gonna do the slideshow.
Edit that out, you're gonna have to, somebody get the timing on that.
That was great.
Boogie woogie.
I know you got a Division 10 specialties, there's no real description of what that is. Is
So-
that kitchen appliances, and I know usually it's bathroom petitions and stuff like that.
So specialties in here, a lot of the fire equipment, extractors, all that stuff falls under specialties a lot of time. It's, there's usually, a surprisingly healthy number in that for fire stations, just because of all the specific equipment that doesn't really fall under any other category, it's only for fire stations, so that's general kind of, we'll say, equipment and, appliances that fall directly into the firefighting category.
And one last question, and I'll give it a rest. On out in the exterior improvements, I can see under the paving, we get budget for 4-inch standard duty pavement out in the lot in the driveway. I just know that the wheel loads of these fire trucks are like the heaviest thing on the road now that you don't need a permit for. So I'm sure that'll shake out in the design process, but
So, and again, some of this is kind of just giving them the drawings and letting them go. The apron in the front would all be concrete. And so they're probably, without going through that discussion with how it would be operated based on how it's designed, they're taking, trucks going out the front under concrete and the rest of it being vehicular vehicles. When we get into that, how are we actually gonna circulate apparatus around the station? That's where we start looking at, where do we have to beef up the paving so that you don't have trouble, and where can we save the money on doing standard vehicular paving? So again, that's kind of the early stages. We didn't sit down with them or show them, routes where trucks could come in and out. We just kind of gave them the plan and said, here you go, and let them kind of figure it out on their own. So that's something that, when we get down to the DD set and they can see the paths of travel where we've made clearances for apparatus to move around, where we can refine that, where, 60% of it has to be beefed up pavement, where 40% of it can be just standard vehicular pavement.
Yeah, to your point, anything for the trucks would be probably 8-inch heavy duty asphalt. That's a good point.
I just had one thing, Taylor, if you wouldn't mind. The topic of value engineering was brought to my attention too. At what, for the public, at what point would that start to filter into play?
So I think it's an ongoing process.
Okay.
We take a lot of pride in making sure that things are built based on the budget. So if we start hearing that $20 million really isn't feasible, but 18 might be, well, then we got to look at how we can save $2 million. There are things that we can't save on. We can't, you can't put in a 4-inch concrete slab in the apparatus bay. It's got to be an 8-inch slab, which costs a lot of money for some of these things. But as we develop this, the wish list starts to get narrower, and the items that become more optional, start to appear. So we've had discussion with the chief about radiant floor heating, and sure, it'd be nice, but is it worth the value? So it's kind of always ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
you know, it's usually seen as, you know, oh, we have a number, now how do we get more out of it? And that's one piece of it, but the goal is to eliminate as much of that along the way. And a lot of that, through the process, you'll see things drop off just because they don't make sense based on the overall project budget. There will be things that just don't make the cut early on, you know, because we don't think it's gonna fit the project. So the goal is always to make sure you can build it. It doesn't do any good to spend a lot of money, design a nice, great building everybody likes, and find out you have $20 million and it's a $30 million building. It doesn't do anybody any good. So we're always working on that throughout it. Every time we get an estimate, you know, kind of double checks on that. And if we're trying to stay in this range, the net DD estimate comes in and it's higher, we got to look at things then. You know, we want to take them out before the end. So it's kind of an ongoing process. I wouldn't say you're necessarily value engineering it, but it's a constant review of the budget versus what's going in there, so that we aren't at a point where, whoa, what can we take out of this to save money?
I think what Kyle's saying is kind of right on. I just want to be clear because I see value engineering as like two different sides of the coin, right? So first and foremost, if there was like a set budget, then we are, you know, we can't say the set budget's 20, this estimate came in at 32 or, 22, we'd be value engineering right away. Where the heck can we need to bring this back in budget before we can even go further with design, right? But then the other side of the coin is kind of like what Kyle is saying, is that nothing that you don't need is being designed in the building right now. So you're not getting an extravagant building that these cuts, you're getting something that is based on the program required for the building. So the program that is being built for this building is exactly what the fire department needs. There's, I wouldn't say nothing, but probably 95% of it is not over and above what they need. Same goes for any of the finishes that go in the building. The designer is building something that is based on their industry knowledge for length, longevity, quality. They're not putting things into the building that quality-wise are gonna, you'll need to be fixing down the line. And they're not putting something in the building that somebody's gonna walk in and say, "Oh my God, what'd you spend my money on?" It's kind of that happy medium. So that's value engineering can be looked at a couple different ways, and people have to be careful with that. It's because you can start to value engineer a building too soon if you start hearing chirps about the number of the building, and you start diminishing quality, and you start taking away program space. People think you're value engineering, but you're actually affecting the operation and the longevity of the building. Right now, they're designing for you, a 50+ year building. And that's the quality that's going into the building. So I 100% agree. It's that process of value engineering or looking for the best option that is going to give you the quality that you need. The least expensive, best quality is what they strive for. So that process is going on. And how can we build this in a way that makes it more attractive for builders to build this? What's the easier way to build this box, sort of thing? That is 100% going on, because we need that number to come in, under the budget. But if it's a point of all you have is $20 million or all you have is $15 million, then it's a completely different conversation. We're going to be looking at flat roofs. We're going to be looking at sealed concrete. You know what I mean? It's which way the town wants to take it, because there really is two extremes you can go to.
And I think the first phase of trying to find the best value will happen to get a number. And once the town has picked a number, if something drastic happens in the market, things start going up, that's where you have to sit down and say, okay, things have to change because we have to fit this budget. So it's it's an ongoing process, so you don't have to do it at the end, but there are situations, in the past few years, things change monthly. From what we were getting on estimates, a month or two later, they were basically useless. So if we end up in a situation like that again, then it's the drastic, okay, we got to look at this differently and how do we save money and still accomplish the goals? Because the goal is always 50-year, we're trying to give you a building you're not gonna have to go back and fix in 10 years, that it's gonna last you. But there are always different ways to get there.
Yeah, the design team is saying, based on the operations that the town of Lakeville needs, this is the cost to build that, to build it efficiently, and to build it so that the quality lasts. If you want to start bringing that number down, you're going to have to start cutting quality and start cutting square footage. I'm sure there are other things in there that, yes, you could take out and not have it affect operations, but it gets to a point where you go past that and you start actually affecting the program, which is what we don't want to do.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I may, the value started for us as far as maximizing value for the town. It started with our selection of an OPM. It started with our selection of an architect. We hired people that have experience with fire departments. So they bring those efficiencies, all that knowledge, things that they've learned from the other projects into this project. They engage the fire department with the programming meetings. So we got an opportunity to communicate to them what makes Lakeville unique, what our needs are that are unique, that are different from the cookie cutter fire station. And so then all of a sudden they modify their starting point to address our specific needs. And it's really like, I guess to their point, I have to agree, it really started before this, at the very, very start of this process, before we even brought them on board. It's been in our mind the whole time is to maximize value. In these program discussions, we were lopping stuff off already, that we just knew would be a difficult sell to the town and might be considered excessive. And if we're already lopping things off that we think that are, bells and whistles, it's been, value engineering's been occurring straight through this whole project, and it will continue going forward. I know it's not big money, even our grant writing strategies on the side are the strategy there is just to save $200,000-$400,000 off some of these soft costs. We're very, very much driven about providing maximum value, and it's not just a one-time exercise. It's throughout this whole process. Absolutely.
Thank you very much for taking the time to explain that, because I really couldn't defend a lot of that, because
Well, you don't expect it either,
Right.
so it's.
like, no, we'll bring it back to the
Yeah,
committee.
to give you an example, we're building a fire station. When people think of a fire station, they think brick. In the estimate, it's composite siding. It's very similar to the siding used on this building. It's a lot of those thoughts have already gone into this estimate, but it's, if we were going through this and I saw terrazzo flooring, I'd call up Kyle and say, "What are you doing? Like, what do you think?" You know what I mean? Like, it's absolutely, I think we've kind of hit it on, maybe too much, but it's being designed in a way that is quality, not quantity of how much stuff we can get in this building, and it's really looking at the longevity of those products that go into it.
Thank you very much. Okay. All right, so, anybody else on the estimate, any other comments or anything? So I'll touch base with you about, what we can, put together so that we can get this up on the website.
Yeah.
So-
Yeah. I'm gonna see if if Molly can get that video out tomorrow,
Excellent.
and she'll at least have a draft over at the chief. So.
Perfect. Schedule, we have a date scheduled for next Wednesday. I don't wanna just have a meeting to have a meeting, I wanna have a meeting because we need to have the meeting, so, thoughts on, it would be in preparation for the open house and town meeting.
So, yeah, I think from a design standpoint, I don't think we're gonna have a lot extra other than, what would essentially be an email to update on schedule for flagging and potential schedule for, survey or any new information that's become available on the stream, on the design side. So unless it's a marketing or promotional side, from the design side, I don't think there's a need for next week.
Okay. All right. We have time to schedule it, but I think a lot of, what we have rolling now through open house and town meeting, you know, certainly can be done without deliberation, obviously. It's more of just information, this is what's happening, this is what we're gonna be doing, and
Yeah, I don't know if there'll be a lot to go over next week. I'm just looking at the schedule here.
Excuse me.
I'm wondering if so if we have the open house on the 1st. It's almost like the following week, maybe we have kind of like a marketing meeting. And just talk, you know what I mean? Just talk marketing, just this is how the open house is gonna go, here's what we rolled out, you know, what else do we sort of need? Because, I think that would work well. So right after Memorial Day, if we meet in there somewhere, the 28th, 29th, 30th, and then we have the open house, and then we have a meeting in between the open house and town meeting, I think that kind of falls nicely.
okay. All right, so we'll hold off on the 22nd, and then we'll work to try to coordinate. Now, the marketing meeting, is that something we would want to do virtually, versus in person?
I think that could work. Doesn't make a
I'm
difference
just
to
trying
me.
to think of,
I'm not opposed to it.
you know, I don't mind meeting in person, but
It
So when are
might-
you looking at it? What?
It would probably be the 28th or
29th?
29th, yeah, 29th.
Let's keep it to a Wednesday, yeah, 29.
all right, so we'll plan, because that, I know that the room,
It's our regular meeting slot anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
so, all right, so let's just say next meeting's the 29th. Excellent. All right, in front of us, there's a few, one invoice, needing a motion, for approval.
Motion to approve Pomeroy Associates invoice dated 5/13/24, invoice number LFSP-006. In the amount, in the amount of $7,730. Just want to make sure.
For zero.
All right, we have a
Peace.
motion and a second. Any discussion? All right, signify by roll call, please.
O'Brien, aye?
Carboni, aye?
McCullough, aye.
Or Darling Eye.
Conroy, aye.
Noon's eye.
Simon, aye.
Okay. You have the, for signature tonight, right? We'll sign that tonight?
Yeah,
Okay, excellent.
On that one?
Nope,
Thank you.
that's fine. Don't
thank
touch
you.
it.
Question, do we have to post the open house if, the committee shows up?
No.
All
We're
right.
not gonna be deliberating,
Okay, excellent.
so, but that's an excellent question.
Thank you.
Yes.
Good job.
Yes. Got a good question.
All right, also, I know that this was a late out to all of us, but, the minutes, did everybody have an opportunity to review the minutes?
Yep. I read them in my car.
Excellent.
Not driving, right?
Nope.
Let's clarify that.
I did have a chance to go through them as well. I didn't have any, comments other than there was some grammatical stuff that I can certainly, you know, put through. It's not, doesn't change content in any way whatsoever. So I'll entertain a motion to,
Motion to approve the
Great.
minutes of March 13th, 2024.
Second.
all right, we have a motion, Mr. Nunes, and a second by Mr. Darling. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those signify by roll call.
Conroy, aye.
Noon's eye.
Simon, aye.
Darling Eye.
McCullough, aye.
Brian, aye?
And Carboni, aye. Okay, minutes are passed. Thank you very much. And any old business? New business? We already scheduled our meeting.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
I like
All right.
this guy an awful lot.
Sure you don't wanna stick around?
All right. Meeting's adjourned at 8:04 PM.